siku zote za maisha yangu. Siku zote za maisha yangu, niutazame uzuri wa Bwana, na kutafakari hekaluni mwake. Hakika wema na fadhili zitanifuata. Thank you for the like. Let me know where you are joining from. Yesterday I was sharing the story of my vocation, but seems like there was no audio, and then maybe something happened with my internet, so I don't know if someone can hear me or they can't hear me. If someone can just write in the chat if they can hear me, so that I do my story, my vocation story. Hakika wema na fadhili zitanifuata. Siku zote za maisha yangu, niutazame uzuri wa Bwana, na kutafakari hekaluni mwake. Okay, I see some likes. Maybe people can get me clearly. So some people were asking me, how did you end up becoming a sister? How did you end up becoming a sister? And I was just sharing that I happen to have been born in a religious family, whereby my maternal side was more of staunch Catholics, and then my paternal side was more of staunch Protestants. So it was actually a mixed family, an ecumenical family, if I may call it. But having grown up closer to my mother than I was to my father, obviously we happened to follow my mother's religion. You know how powerful mothers can be, how influential they can be in the family. So all my life, I followed the Catholic tradition. And then there came a time when I had to go and learn my catechism. And I did that while I stayed with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, who was also a staunch Catholic. So while we were there learning our catechism, of course they used to mold us, they would advise us, and one of the advices I received was that, you know, after receiving First Holy Communion, you need to join at least one church group. Those days we used to have 3 groups in the church. They were not so much segmented the way they are segmented these days. So we just used to have the category of children, and then we would have the category of the youth, and then we would have the adults, of course, the men and the women. So after receiving First Holy Communion, we were advised at least to join a group in the church, and the group that we were able to join by that time was the group of children, and particularly those who are liturgical dancers. So we knew if you are in that liturgical dancers group, there is a high likelihood that you will join maybe religious life. If you are a boy, you will join maybe priesthood or brotherhood. And if you would not make it to the 2 vocations, then there was a high likelihood that you would become a good parent, like you would get married through a wedding officially. You would wait until that time for you to get married officially. So this is a group that was considered as a morally upright group. So we joined this group of liturgical dancers. And through this group, we were able to visit different places. I remember that time while staying in my mother's home parish, that was Shiseso, and it was under the leadership of Father Kizito Sabatia for some time. And then there are others who came later on. But I remember Father Kizito Sabatia would take us for outings. And you know how children can be excited when you take them for these outings. So he would take us to see different places. He would take us to watch some movies. I remember us watching the story, the life of Jesus, you know, from birth until the grave and the resurrection. I remember us watching that movie, courtesy of the organization of Father Kizito Sabatia. And then sometimes we would also go to visit our fellow liturgical dancers in other parishes. Like at one time we went to a neighboring parish, which is called Shibuye. And that was so exciting for me. Thank you very much, Ian Waits from Australia. Yeah, so that opportunity to visit fellow liturgical dancers in other places was, you know, always an exciting moment. So I continued to grow in my faith, and it happened that my mother was close to sisters. She used to work for some sisters, and so through my mother, I got to learn that there was a group of sisters, and you know, so I started desiring to join this group of people when I grew up. I was now in standard 5 or so when I started to aspire already. So what my mother did was she would take me with her whenever there were celebrations of sisters, especially the Sisters of Mary in Mukumu. My mother would bring me along with her, and I would witness those professions of sisters, and they were so inspiring. If there were ordinations in the neighboring parish, especially in Mukumu parish, my mother would also bring me along with her, and I found that really touching. That somehow continued to help me grow in my vocation. Do they say sisters or nuns? I'm not sure. Okay, I think there are sisters. So sisters are more of active, and then the nuns are more of contemplative. Like nuns stay indoors for a longer time. Sisters are active. They work out there with the people. Like my congregation is an active congregation. That means we work among the people. Like we have some of us who are teachers, so they work in the schools with the people. And then we have some who are medics, so they work in the hospitals. And others are in different professions. Maybe if you are a social worker, so you are working with people like refugees, or maybe if you are working in a children's home. So we go out and mingle with people out there. And then the nuns are more of enclosed. So they spend most of their time in prayer. They intercede for the world. So their prayers also help us to keep going, because if 24/7 they are praying for us, then we only get stronger. I think that is the difference. Yeah, thank you so much, Ian, for your understanding. So yes, I continued to grow in my vocation, and then when I completed my primary school, I got back to my home village, whereby I also joined a group in the church, a group known as the Junior Legionaries. So in this group, we would meet every Sunday after Mass, and then we would have our communal prayers, and then we would also have some advice, especially from the senior people. Wilson, I love you. Thank you, Wilson. Much love to you too. So we would have advice from the senior members, the senior mothers who are there the senior fathers who are there would also advise the boys who are there in the group. So we continued to grow, and also in this group we got opportunities to go out to other parishes, maybe for competitions or stuff, and we would interact. Okay, I am from Kenya, Africa, Kenya. Nairobi is our capital city. That is where I'm based at the moment. Yeah, but we work in mostly in East Africa, but we also have communities in the United States. So we have some of our sisters working in the US, and we are opening more missions. You never know, maybe at one point we shall open missions in Australia if there is need. Yeah, so I continued to grow in my vocation that way. And then, of course, I was continuing with my studies, as I was also being nurtured in that group of the junior legionaries. So once I completed my Form 4, I wanted so much to join the Sisters of Mary, who were nearer to us. At least that is a group of people that I knew, and I really wanted to join because of the way they used to conduct themselves. But then I didn't have a way of reaching them. You know, sometimes there are people out there who wish to join maybe a certain vocation, or they just need some guidance or something. It could even somebody who is aspiring to get married, and they wish for somebody to advise them, but then it becomes hard, like you don't know whom to approach to guide you. So that was happening to me. I was longing to join this life, but I didn't know how to start. But good enough, at least I thank God I had my mother, who was also supporting me and my desire, my vocation. So if you are parents out there and your children are aspiring for something that you know is for a good cause, always be there to support them in whatever way. So my mother one day went out to our nearest parish, and then she came back home and she was carrying a paper. And then she called me and handed me the paper. She told me, you've been looking for the address of the Sisters of Mary, and today I happened to meet Sister so-and-so, and she gave me this address. So I was so excited because this is an address that I had been waiting for a very long time. So what happened, I didn't waste my time. I went ahead and wrote an application letter. And then by that time, I had just completed my Form 4, and I was helping with some church work in the parish that was nearby. So after writing the letter, I went to my parish that Saturday to help with some cleaning, washing of the church linen and stuff. So when I went there, of course, I handed my letter to the parish priest who was there, so he would help me to deliver. I didn't know where to deliver the letter, but at least I got the address. So after writing, I gave to my parish priest, who was kind enough to post it to whoever was supposed to receive the letter. And then after a short while, I think it was less than a month, I again received a letter through the parish priest. I think he went to the post office and he found my letter there. And the Sisters of Mary had responded to my application. They were inviting me for a come and see seminar. That was the most exciting day of my life. I could not imagine. You know, it was not just a letter that was inviting me, but there was also a brochure there that shows Sisters of Mary and the activities that they participate in, their different apostolates as Sisters of Mary. And it was just exciting to look at the different apostolates of the sisters, and I felt like, yeah, I think this is where I need to be. That's a wonderful vocation. You are doing great. Thank you so much, Ian, for the compliment. So since the letter was inviting me to go and visit the sisters in Mukumu, one of the parishes that's not so far away from my home, I didn't waste my time. So I created one day when I went and visited the sisters there, and I met those young sisters who were just in formation. They had just joined religious life, and they were still aspiring like me, yes, but they were now in their second year already in the formation house. And they welcomed me so well, they were so jovial, so cheerful, and I felt like this is just the right place for me to be. So after visiting them, I just went back home the next day because a come and see seminar had been scheduled, and it was going to happen not so long after my visit to Mukumu. So the day came for us to go for the come and see seminar. The come and see seminar was in a place known as Mumias, and Mumias was also not so far away from my home, about an hour's drive away from my home. So I didn't know where that was, but somehow I just found my way there, because when you are desiring for something, you look for it. However hard it may be to find it, you will find it because you want it. So somehow I found myself in Mumias, and there I got an opportunity also to meet with fellow young people like myself who were aspiring to join religious life. We were about 17 or so of us who met there for that seminar. And during that seminar, we were taught a lot about the Sisters of Mary, what they do, what their charism is, what their spirit is, which is to love and to serve. Sisters of Mary's spirit is to love and to serve, and their charism is sharing in the redemptive mission of Jesus Christ, the great teacher and healer, which means that as a sister of Mary, you need to be a witness to everyone you encounter. Like, you need to teach by your life, and then you also need to bring healing to the people that you encounter. It may not be necessarily through treating them like medically, but it can be maybe through a kind word. You can give someone who is discouraged an advice, and then they feel much better. So that is basically our spirit as Sisters of Mary. Even though we work in different apostolates, we always have to find a way of, bearing witness by a way of life, and also bringing healing to the people out there. The world is broken, and people need someone who can guide them or give them hope. So that is basically what we do. So after that seminar that took about 1 week, we went back home, and we were invited for a seminar in October. October is the month that was 2 months after the Come and See seminar. So that was now an interview, which was both written and oral. The written interview was much easier because all you needed to do was have a paper and a pen, and then you respond to the questions that you had been given. But then when it came to the oral interview, we were somehow nervous because you are just a young person there, and then you are going to face a panel of like 5 sisters. I found that somehow challenging, but there was no way out. I just had to go and face them. So I went in there, and I was being asked questions, and I responded to the questions as much as I could. Those that I didn't know, I would just tell them, I don't know this one. So it is good if you are out there and you are aspiring to a certain kind of life. It is good for you to have some knowledge. Today, with technology, I think it is much easier, and you can get to learn a lot of things. Some time back, it was a little bit hard to access a lot of information, but today it is much easier. The only holy experience that I had was the smell of roses in my room. I check out what happens when you smell that it was Mary that came. Wow, that is interesting to hear. Johnson is asking where exactly. Where in terms of where my congregation is, or where I am at the moment. My congregation is in in western part of Kenya, and I am currently in Nairobi, Kenya, if that is what you wanted to know. Yeah, so of course, after facing the panel of sisters, that took us about 2 days, the written and the oral interview. So after that, we were given letters. So if you had passed the interview, they would give you a letter and a list of things that you needed to look for before joining the congregation. That was just some personal effects. And they were quite a lot, but they were necessary because we needed them to join. So I was excited because I had passed my interview, and I was given that letter that contained the list of things that I needed to go and buy. So I was excited and I went home. Of course, the list was long, but there are always people of goodwill, people who are willing to support you in whatever way. So they were there to help me at that time when I needed them. And the next month, the month that followed, that was November, on 30th, it was now the date for us to report to the postulate to begin our aspirancy stage. Yeah, so we went to the postulate, but our arrival was in St. Jude's in Mumias, where we spent about 1 week. During that time, we were just being oriented to the congregation. We would have some people teach us how to do baking of cakes, for example. We would have some novices there teaching us some liturgy, how to sing, these basics that you need to know before you join the convent. So they would teach us. And then we would also have classes that we had facilitators. Most of them were sisters who were teaching us about this religious life. So it was sort of an introduction so that we start getting acquainted with the system. And then after a week, we were now taken to Mukumu postulate, the place where we were to begin now our formation officially. So there were 11 of us by that time that had joined as aspirants. And then when we were taken to Mukumu, we found 6 postulants who were there. So we began our life, the 11 of us plus the 6, that made 17. Yeah, so 17 of us plus 2 formators. We began our life in the postulate, and it was interesting. It was nice being in the company of others who were also of like mind, aspiring to the same vocation. So there is a program. When you join as an aspirant, of course, there is a program from morning to evening. There's always a program. Like when you wake up, the first thing after, of course, freshening up, you have to go for morning prayers. And then after the morning prayers, you go for Mass immediately. Then after Mass, you come for breakfast. After breakfast, you wash up, and then you do some cleaning. Usually there are departments where everyone is given a department where they can work, do some work. So after breakfast, you wash up the cups and plates, and then after that, you go work in your department. If it is cleaning up, you do the cleanup very fast. And then by 9 o'clock, at least we have our class session. And we used to be taught different subjects. Some of them were like sacramentology, liturgy was one of the key subjects, spiritual theology. We had topics like moral theology. We had topics like Mariology, human development, like how a human being grows from birth to the grave. That was one of the most interesting subjects that I actually encountered. We were being taught by one of our sisters by the name Sister Baptista, and she was so good at it. Maybe at one point I will teach people about this human development topic. So yes, after class, which began at 9, we would go for the visitation of the Blessed Sacrament. That usually happened at 10 o'clock. And then after that, we would come for tea break. After tea break, if there was a second lesson, we will go for our second lesson that ended maybe at around midday or some minutes past midday, after which we will go for our midday prayers at 12:30. By the time we were done with midday prayers, it was maybe time for us to go for lunch because it was already 1 o'clock. And then after 1 o'clock, we will do the washing after lunch, and then people would do their different activities. It was more of some free time. From 2 o'clock was more of some free time. During weekends, especially on Sunday, we had time for siesta. So 2 o'clock was a time for you to go for your siesta. And we would we would sleep. Some of us would sleep for 2 hours, some would sleep for 1 hour. Some of us have to take time before we sleep, so maybe we sleep 30 minutes later. But there are those who, once they go to bed, they just sleep. So we had that privilege of siesta every Sunday. But during weekdays, if you are not busy doing something, then you would have that free time maybe to work in your department. If you are working with the chapel, for example, maybe you would do the cleaning, go change the linen. And if you are working in the compound, you can also do the cleaning if it is sweeping around and stuff. If you are working in the dormitory, you can do some mopping or so. Or if maybe you want to go and visit the sick in the hospital, Sundays were the days when we would go to visit the sick after Mass. Yeah, so after that, of course, in the evening at 3 o'clock during weekdays, we would have the Divine Mercy prayer. And then after that, we will continue with our activities. And at 5:30, we will begin our evening prayer at 5:30. Of course, we began with the rosary, and then after the rosary, we will do the vocal prayers, and then we will have the liturgy of hours. That will take us about an hour, maybe with some more minutes or so. And then after the evening prayers, it was definitely just a few minutes to supper time. So you will spend that time maybe having your personal reflection or something of the sort. If you are a supper cook, you will be preparing dinner for the rest of the members so that when they come in, supper is ready. Then at 7 o'clock, of course, we would come and watch some news for a few minutes, maybe the first 15 minutes or so, and then we would have our supper, worship, and then it was time for recreation. During that time for recreation, which began at around maybe 8 p.m. or so, we would do different things. Maybe we would do handwork like crocheting. Some people would be knitting. Some people would be, different activities, just mostly handwork. Some would be making mats, table mats. Some would be making cards. They were sewing those cards. I never learned how to sew those cards, but they looked beautiful once they were done. Strawberry, hi. Thank you, my strawberry. Yeah, so we will do the handwork, and then there were sometimes when we would spend that time maybe to practice, to learn some songs. So we would have our formator teaching us some new songs during that evening session. And then when we were done with the activities of the day, if it was maybe a Saturday going to Sunday, it would mean we spent the evening preparing for the next day, the liturgy of the next day. So we will do our music, and that was always my favorite time because I love music. So I would really enjoy just the practice. And then at 9:30 p.m., that was always our time when we began night prayers. So we would all be silent, and then we have the examination of conscience, and then after that we say our night prayer as guided in the breviary. And then after night prayer, everyone was expected to be silent. So you go silently to your room, and then you remain silent. You don't make noise. Just go and sleep until the next day. The next day you will wake up early enough. If you were a breakfaster that day, you wake up earlier so that you go prepare breakfast for the rest of the group, and then you join the others in prayer at around 5:45 or so, when we began our morning prayers. So you will join them at that time, and then you continue with the program. So the program continues as usual. Yeah. Maybe the only time it changes is when maybe we are going out, or maybe there is a special event, maybe there is a funeral or so, then the program is altered just a little bit. Then I remember from around April, we used to have sisters coming for their retreats. Mukumu, where the postulate is more of a mother house. And so we had many sisters coming for their retreats from April, May, June, July, and August. The last one was always in August. So being there as aspirants, we used to help them, especially with the cooking. We would help them prepare the meals. As they pray for us, we were helping them to prepare the meals, and we will do that in turns. And it was an interesting experience. Yeah. So basically, that is how our aspirancy went. And then at around July of the year when we joined, we were told we were going to move to a different country, which was Uganda. So this came as a shock for us, because when we joined, we were not expecting that we would go to a different country. But since it came and religious life demands obedience, we had no choice but to obey. Anyway, it was a nice experience, because we were going to experience life in a different country. So when that time came, the aspirants, now the 11 of us, were taken from Mukumu, where we were staying, and then the postulants remained there. So we were taken from Mukumu to a place called Nyondo, that was in Uganda. Now in Nyondo, we met other aspirants, 5 of them, who had joined just from Uganda. So we joined them, and we became 16 of us. We were now a big team of aspirants, and it was just nice, having that experience with aspirants from a different country. Most of them were from Uganda, 4 of them, and then 1 of them was from Kenya, but had started her formation in Uganda. So we joined them, and then the postulants who were there were, I think, 4 of them. They crossed over now to Kenya, where they joined the postulants who were in Kenya. So we began our life in Nyondo, where we spent at least 6 months, because we left that country on 31st of December of that year. So we spent about 6 months, and it was a whole lot of new experience, and I can say we enjoyed our moments there. Some things were a little bit different from the way we used to do things in Kenya, but it was all a learning experience. I got to learn while there that you would actually use shavings to cook. I don't know if you know shavings. It's what remains from, you see, when you do timber from wood, the shavings that remain, and also the sawdust. We used to use that as firewood when we went to Uganda. That was a new experience for me, because we were used to cooking on 3 stones. But there, they had a cooking, I don't know if it is a cooking stove, whereby it was a hole that is made on top, and then another hole protruding from, the side, whereby you will just put in 1 or 2 firewood, and then you would fill the place with the shavings to the full, and it would take a lot of time before that fire ran out. So that was a whole new experience for me. And then while here, we also got to learn how to eat some new foods. Like we had food known as kamalea, and I got to learn that it comes from a bamboo or something. So it is something that is meant from bamboo, then it is dried. So you cook it and mix it with peanut soup, it was a whole new experience, but we learned how to eat this new food in Uganda. Then while there, we would have some evening walks, we would visit different places. So we got to learn a few things here and there from the new culture. And life was not so bad. At least we got to learn new experiences. I think I'm going to stop my story here, but I will continue next time. So we stayed in Uganda until 31st of December, and then we crossed over back to Mukumu where we had started, because now this is where all the postulants were staying. So next time I'm going to share my story now as a postulant in Mukumu, where we took about a year or so before moving to the next stage. I thank you all for joining me, and I'll be stopping here. So some people were talking to me. Jona, how are you Fadhili? Sister wetu hujambo? Si jambo ndugu yangu mdogo. Wilson, beautiful, thank you. Emmanuel, good luck. Thanks, good luck. Hey, my girlfriend is black and putting on some. It's not working. Should I start hitting on her so she will lose weight? And what do you think? I think that's a personal decision. It's for you. You can sit down and have a conversation. Since you are friends, you know your friend understands you better than anyone else. So you can just have a conversation, and then you decide on the way forward together. I think it does no harm. Yeah, so I'll stop it here. I'll be sharing next time my story as a postulant. Bye. Have a good afternoon, good day, good evening from wherever you are.